Good morning, grade 11. Today's session is the first session of revision. It's a revision chapter that talks about the basics of history and social studies. To start with the first slide, it says, what is history? The definition of history. It's the study of people and events of the past. Okay, why do we study history? For two reasons. The first one, to know how things change or stay the same. And the second one is to know how cultures change over time. Why do we study history? To know how things change. If you compare the ancient empires to today's countries, for example, pick ancient Greece to today's country of Greece. How did it change? How did things change? What changed and what remained the same? If you compare the Americas from the day they were explored up until today, what was the same and what changed? The answers, we can find them out by studying history. The second reason is how cultures change over time. If we're talking about the same country, if we're talking about Egypt, how did the culture, the Egyptian culture, change throughout the last 100 years? We also know that by studying history. Any questions so far? The definition and why do we study history? Grade 10, any grade 11, any questions?
No, thank you.
No, sir.
Okay. When we measure time, there are certain words that we use, you took them last year, that define certain periods of time. Decade means 10 years, century, 100 years, millennium, 1,000 years, and an era is a large block of time. This year, we're not using numbers. So if there's a question that you need to answer, or if there's a term that I will use, we will use these words. For example, you will say that the war lasted for a decade, not for 10 years. So this year, we're not using the numbers, we're using the terms. Okay? When we divide time from the very beginning of humans up until today, we divide the timeline into 4 periods of time or 4 eras. The first era is the prehistoric era. This is the time from the first man, when, if you remember from grade 10, when they were hunting mammals and they were gathering seeds and berries. And then the weather started to get colder, so they had to move. They moved from Siberia in Asia to the North America. Do you remember what did they use to move? What did they cross?
بس كانوا بيشرحوا الهواية تقريبا.
Ice bridge حاجة كده.
Yes, what was the name of the ice bridge? I'm not saying the destination. When the weather got colder, there's a certain strait that got frozen. And then they passed through it. Excellent. Berinja. The Bering Strait got frozen and it turned into the Berinja land bridge. And then both the humans and the animals used this land bridge to escape the extreme weather and the extreme cold and the start of the ice age in Siberia and moved to the Americas. This is the part of prehistory, okay? Which is before writing 5,500 years ago. Once the people moved to the North Americas, remember they accidentally discovered farming. From the point where they discovered farming up until Mesopotamia empires developed, and then the Egyptian ancient Egypt empires developed, and then Greece, and then the following ancient empires, this is ancient history, which is up to 500 AD. Now, starting with the 100 Years' War and the plague and the Renaissance, no, not the Renaissance, the 100 Years' War and the plague, the medieval times, the church, the Reformation. Remember last year when we took the last things were about the Queen of England and the Reformation and the Catholic and the Protestant? These were all during the Middle Ages. Gothic art, knights, feudalism, this is all in medieval times. 500 to 1400 AD. At the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of modern history were the beginning of the Crusades. Do you remember the Crusades? It was the first thing you took in grade 10.
Yes.
Starting from the Crusades up until the exploration of the Americas, the American Revolution, the English Revolution, the French Revolution, Civil War, Cold War, World War I, World War II, up until today, this is modern history. So in these 4 eras, okay, you need to know the beginning and end of every event. It started here with the first mankind, and it ended with the movement of the people using the Berinja Land Bridge and the discovery of farming. Here it started with the discovery of farming up until all the ancient empires, until the decline of the Roman Empire. Middle Ages started with the decline of the Roman Empire, and then there were clashes between the church and the rest of the people. There were knights, there were Gothic arts. This is the time of the Middle Ages, up until the plague, the 100 Years' War, and it ended with the Crusades. When the Crusades started, we started modern history. Okay? From the Crusades up until today, this is modern history. Is anything unclear about this slide?
No.
No.
The newcomers, Ganna and Hala, is it clear?
Yes, yes, it's clear.
Now, when we measure time, we have 2 methods, calendars and timelines. When we use calendars, we use them because we need to identify or we need to spot days, weeks, months, and years, up to 5 or 10 years. But when we use a timeline, we use it to measure long periods of time, more than 100 years or probably 50 years. We're talking about uncountable years that you cannot measure using a calendar. When we talk about calendars, we have 2 types of calendars. The Julian calendar, which was created by Julius Caesar, and the second one is the Gregorian calendar, which was created by Pope Gregory. Okay, the name is not written, you have to write it down because you will be held accountable for it. Pope Gregory discovered that the Julian calendar was losing time. It did not have the 7 days of the week, it did not have full days of the month, so they were using lots of time in the year. So he invented or created the Gregorian calendar, which is the calendar that we use up until today. Any questions about calendars and timelines?
No.
No.
Okay. Osama, can you tell me why do we use timelines? Osama? Yahya, can you tell me why do we use
ثانية
timelines?
بس.
Why ايه؟
Why do we use timelines? We said we have 2 methods of measuring time, timelines and calendars. Why do we use timelines? Or when do we use timelines?
To identify the time.
Really? Calendars do not identify time?
مش عارف يا مس.
مس أقول
لولو؟ لولو؟ Oh, Lulu's not here. Hala.
مس أنا
No, yes.
1 second. Hala, can you tell me why do we use timelines? Or when do we use timelines? When or why do we use timelines?
Timelines.
Yes, we said there are 2 measuring methods of time, calendars and timelines. When do we use a calendar and when do we use a timeline? I'm asking you, when do we use a timeline?
هو أنا كنت برا السيشن.
That you were here at the time of the timeline, you went out when I was explaining the Gregorian calendar.
هو النت كان طلعني قبلها مش سامعة.
بغدادي.
Yes.
When do we use a timeline?
To measure long periods of time.
To measure what?
Or to organize events in periods of history.
No, this is not what. Why is it used? Kunuz.
Yes.
Guys, if I'm gonna call your name, obviously I need you to answer the question. So we don't have to repeat the question every time.
Can you say the answer again?
I did not say the answer. I'm waiting for you to answer. توكل. توكل is not here from the beginning. سقف.
مستواكم مش لزوم.
أنهي ياسمين ياس؟
سقف.
تمام.
Yasmin. Is she here?
أنا موجودة بس. أي.
طيب, I called your name and apparently I'm waiting for you to answer the same question.
مش عارفة ولا اسمه. Yes, can I try?
Who wants to try?
Yes.
Kunuz? Try.
Yes. When the period of time is more than 1 year. ولا برضه مش اللي كده.
You're close. It's not 1 year.
مس ممكن أقول؟
Yes, Yasmin.
عشان it measures more than 100 of years.
Yes, it measures long periods of time, which is 50 or 200 or more. And 50 and above years, things that you cannot measure using a calendar. Thank you, Yasmin. Now, teachers teach different subjects. So do historians. Historians, they are people who study history. Each type of historian studies different part of the history. Archaeology is the study of artifacts. An artifact is an object made by people, such as tools, weapons, pottery, and jewelry. So an archaeologist is a person that studies these objects. They do not care about skeletons, they do not care about culture, they do not care about numbers. What they care about is the man-made objects. This is what they study. Paleontology is another study. They study fossils. Fossils are the remains of plants, animals, and humans. Now, these people, they do not care, unlike archaeologists, they do not care about objects. They do not care about tools. They do not care about clothes. They care about bones. They care about skeletons and remains. This is what they study. Anthropologists, they do not care about physical things. They do not care about tangible things. They study culture and how it changes over time. If we pick a certain time frame, which is, for example, the medieval times, an archaeologist would study what in the medieval times? Easy.
We study in what?
We're picking the medieval times, اللي هي the times of the Gothic art, اللي هو black and white, skeletons, knights. So
أيوة.
we're picking this time. Or let's make it
Yes.
easier for you. We are picking Greece, okay? Ancient Greece. What would an archaeologist study in ancient Greece? Please don't tell me tools, weapons, and pottery, okay? Give me
فلسفي يعني فلسفي ماث كده فلسفي
philosophy. This is an archaeologist who studies an artifact.
اركيولوجي
Hmm.
اما ماشي ثانية كده
If we're in Greece or ancient Greece, we're discovering ancient Greece, and an archaeologist needs to study something. What would he study?
فوسلز يعني
Read the definition of archaeology and then answer back again.
تمام.
The study of artifacts.
What's artifacts?
الفوسلز.
يعني tools
لا مش
Artifacts هي
الفوسلز.
الفوسلز.
لا سوري.
tools used by
Yes,
ancient
I
people.
know. I can read the definition. I'm asking you to give me an example from ancient Greece. What's an artifact from ancient
جولد
Greece? Eh?
جولد اند سيلفر
Okay. Gold coins or silver coins that were discovered from the ancient Greek times. Okay.
Attis مثلا.
What would
Art.
a paleontologist study? Layan.
Paleontologist.
Yes.
Fossils.
Really? Give me an example.
والله. Fossil of a dead animal.
Can you give me a clear answer?
Eh?
Can you give me a clear answer other than the definition written in front of you? Give me an example of what kind of fossils they might find.
Dead animals fossil.
Bones or shells.
Bones or shells.
But,
What else? What about plants? What's Greece famous for?
Plants?
Yes, what is Greece famous for?
Greece.
Oh, we're talking about ancient Greece.
الجد والجدسز
Is this plants? Who is this smart? who must have answered عشان I can't.
اسمها من الأبسط اللي بيطلع
Okay, good
هناك.
morning Sahrawi. We're talking about fossils and plants and animals. We do not study gods and goddesses.
هي
What
في
would
زرعة يعني مشهورة في جريس هناك؟
Yes, the olive. Do you know olives? That Greece is familiar and famous for its olive oil and olives. Never mind. What would an anthropologist study? I cannot answer. Ruhayya.
What would Amos معلش anthropology
Yes.
anthropologist قصدي
Don't tell me how
culture of the
culture
people
changes
yeah.
over time. Give me an example. Clarify.
القامس معلش
Do not read. Don't tell me he will study how culture of Greece changed. يعني give me an example. Make it specific to Greece.
أنا عارفة.
يعني he will study traditions of people الفود language الحاجات دي.
Okay, thank you.
ماشي.
Do you remember Lucy? Is anyone familiar with Lucy?
الفيلم؟
I will count that this was not even said.
No.
Now, when you were young, probably in grade 5 and 6, you took that all the animals or all the living things on Earth were divided into species: mammals, reptiles, amphibians, birds, and fish. Okay, these are species. Okay, a class of individuals with similar physical characteristics. Now, humans or mammals, humans are classified under mammals. When historians study history, they took humans and they classified them and they made them under the species of Homo sapiens. So when I say Homo sapiens, I'm talking about human beings. Homo sapien is a Latin word that means an animal or a being that walks on two. Okay, so humans are classified under the species of Homo sapiens. What does Homo sapiens mean? A living thing that's walking on two. We're not animals, we do not walk on four. The first Homo sapiens to be discovered was Lucy. It was partial skeleton, part of a skeleton. They did not discover the whole skeleton. they discovered only part of a skeleton. This skeleton belonged to a lady that was in her late 20s, mid 30s. She lived 3.2 million years ago, which was in the period of prehistory. She was 3.5 feet tall and she weighed 60 pounds. This partial skeleton that they discovered, this was the first skeleton to be discovered of a very ancient human being, which was the caveman or cave woman. And they called her Lucy. Is it clear so far?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'll stop here and then the rest, the second part of the lesson, we will discuss it. I don't think we have a session tomorrow because I don't know if I have you or not. Anyways, if you don't have a session tomorrow, you need to check SMS tomorrow, probably at the end of the day, to check the PowerPoint and to check your assignment. Remember, we said we will have a weekly assignment that needs to be submitted. We still did not discuss how are you going to submit it. Most probably it will be via email. I know you have it. Will be a small task, probably a couple of questions on
لا
what
خلاص
we took.
عندنا سيشن بكرة لازم الحاجات دي.
I'm talking about the task, whether we have a session or not. The task will be uploaded along with the PowerPoint at the end of Thursday. Okay?
Okay.
Most probably you will submit it through email. I will publish a post on the school group and I will tag you in it. You go to SMS, you check the folders, you will find 2020 grade 11. You will find subfolders inside them, PowerPoint videos and assignments. So you check the PowerPoint for this PowerPoint and you check the assignments for the task that you have to do. Clear? It's due up until Saturday night. Sunday morning, as soon as I enter school and I start checking my email, I will not count any tasks. So please submit them by Saturday night, okay?
Okay.
So if you have any questions, it's a very easy part. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.